Welcome to the Spiritual Awakening with Shaz podcast, where we unlock the power within and navigate the journey of your self-discovery together. I'm Shaz, your spiritual mentor and life coach, here to help you tap into your inner guidance system and manifest your best life. Whether you're just beginning your spiritual journey or looking to deepen your practice, this podcast offers insights, techniques, and inspiration to elevate your consciousness and transform your reality. Get ready to shine your light and embrace your true potential. Remember, the answers are inside you. Let me be your guide on earth. Welcome back to the Spiritual Awakening with Shaz podcast. I'm your host, Shaz. Today we're going to be talking about healing childhood wounds and reparenting your inner child. Throughout the spiritual awakening journey, one of the first things that is going to come up for most people is the inner child or the wounds that we carry from our childhood. Whether they stem from the relationships with our parents, our siblings, our school friends, the community, grandparents, cousins, or so forth, many of us carry wounds from our childhood. And these childhood wounds shape our thoughts and our feelings, and most importantly, our behaviours. And they do it more than we realise. In saying so, the patterns that you're carrying forward from your childhood wounds really do affect every relationship that you have with people around you. And if you don't release the triggers and let go of what was, you will continue to attract people of the same vibration who are there to teach you that same lesson over and over again. It is a cycle that I endeavor to help people never to repeat and to stop having it show up in their life. If you are ready to realize, recognize, acknowledge, and surrender those wounds from your adulthood, you can finally set yourself free and heal. In doing that, you will then attract better relationships with people, more connection, more growth, and have so much more peace and love, and that really beautiful essence of someone knowing who you really are. The hardest part about holding on to these childhood wounds is that in our childhood at some time, we created a character for ourselves or an archetype that can be still traveling with us today. And that character is not all of who we are. We lose ourselves in that essence. We forget our greatness. We forget the magic that lies within. And in turn, we show up as someone that, unfortunately, for a lot of the time, most of us don't even like. The hardest part about being a coach and a psychic in this life is sitting down with beautiful young women, because that is my main target audience, and have them tell me how much confidence they don't have, how much worth they can't acknowledge within themselves, and ultimately how much love they miss within themselves. They can't see their own beauty, and therefore they can't see it fully in anybody else either. As you evolve and grow up, and most women eventually become mothers, unfortunately, that is not something that happened for me. And it is probably the only real regret that I have in life. After miscarrying my twins and realizing I couldn't have children, I went through so much pain because of it. But I also look back at it as a different version of self nowadays, of reparenting my own inner child and becoming the parent that I never had. I didn't have a great growing up. I didn't have a mother that loved me and was unconditional with acceptance for me, and a brother who accepted and wanted me. I felt rejected most of my life. I also didn't have my grandparents around. My grandfather passed when I was 7 years old, and our family fractured. And from that fracturing, I lost contact with my grandmother. Thankfully, when I grew up, I was able to reconnect with her and build a relationship, but they had massive impacts on who I am, who I become, and how I showed up in the world. At 20, when it all started to play out, I had no idea. I really didn't know who I was. I didn't realize the wounds that I'd buried, the hurt and the pain and the disconnection from self that I let go had massive impact on my life. I didn't know that it was playing a part. It wasn't until I had a massive blow up at work when I was around 27, 28 years old that it really came to the surface that there were wounds deeply buried in my psyche and in my soul. That discovery led me to my healing journey. Most people don't realize how much of an impact their childhood has had on them. For many, many years, I was in denial. Everything was normal to me. I didn't know any different. I never really seen any different because I never experienced it in any other way. And sometimes when you're experiencing one version of normal or your own inner world, you do not see what goes on outside of it. You do not see what happens in other people's households. The only things that I could really see is in and around me, there were still people that had it worse than I did. Therefore, I consider myself lucky. I had a roof over my head. I had a mother and a brother and somewhere safe to come home to, even though technically it wasn't as safe as I thought. But those things existed for me as this beautiful little mirage and imaginative space where I honestly thought for most of my childhood that I had a great family. And if you look at any traumatized children or battered children out there, they will all tell you that they love their parents and that they didn't do anything wrong and no, it's not that bad. It wasn't until adulthood that I started to review my life through a different lens and perspective and understand that what happened to me was as bad as it was. For most part, I didn't even remember the full abuse that I suffered. I didn't fully comprehend how much my mother and my brother telling me I was unwanted impacted me. I was strong. I was resilient. I just thought that's what normal families do. I've seen brothers and sisters fight and argue and not love each other, but I never fully comprehended the impact that it was having on who I was, not until much later. And it was when I discovered that my emotional needs were never being met from my family or anyone else that I discovered I really couldn't build friendships, relationships, working colleague relationships or partnerships or any emotional stability. It took a big, long look in the mirror for me to realize the impact that this had. Because as I said, I was in complete denial. I could think of 100 million things worse. And as far as I was concerned, I never had it that bad. It really was that bad. I was rejected. I was bullied. I was put down. I was always told that I was unwanted. It was something thrown in my face every day. I was tortured with stories of things that were done to me that I just put aside and played off as it being okay. And I would acknowledge it and go, yep, you did that, but I'm still here, aren't I? So I had this warrior instinct of survivability. And in traumatic childhood, so many of us out there have that. It wasn't until I was 34 years old, when my grandmother passed away, that I fully discovered the depth of hurt that was inside of me. Unbeknownst to me, I had all this trauma, and it was reignited by a throwaway comment from my mother at my grandmother's funeral. And that said about 10 months of having a hiccup, a spasm in my body, 24 hours a day, non-stop for 10 months that I couldn't figure out. I went to doctors, I had specialist appointments, I got x-rays, I had blood tests. I went and seen 2 psychologists. I went and seen everyone known to man. It wasn't until I was referred to a professor for a study on post-traumatic stress disorder that he advised me that I had CPTSD. I didn't even know what that meant. And he told me my case was so bad, the spasm in my body was the physiological response of unprocessed emotion causing anxiety, parts of the depression that I was going through, the deep sadness, the unworthiness. And at that time, a whole worthlessness of not knowing who I was, what my existence was about, or why I wanted to live. Thankfully, I discovered a new relationship around that time. And through that relationship, I talked with my partner and we decided we wanted to have children. In October of that year of 2007, I fell pregnant. I was elated, and suddenly all my symptoms started to slow down. They started to dissipate. The spasm didn't go away overnight, not in any way, shape, or form. But over the next couple of months, it started to reduce to eventually it was no longer there. Why? Simply because I was happy. I was planning for a future. I had something to look forward to. Unfortunately, it didn't work out the way I wanted it to. I miscarried my children on the 7th of December that same year. But thankfully, the spasms never came back. I had found acceptance of self, a worthiness within, and the desire to discover the root cause of who I am. And that led me on my deep spiritual journey and the healing pathway that I took from that moment on. Was it easy? No, it wasn't. Did I face it straight away? Hell no. But I started to peel back layers upon layers upon layers of what had happened to me, of coming to terms with it and bringing it back into the conscious awareness. It severed the relationship that I had with that partner at the time because I couldn't cope with anybody else when I couldn't cope with who I was. Thankfully, I had a number of friendships that survived that time, and I'm very blessed that a few of them are still in my life and have helped me through this discovery of self. They have stood by my side as I've worked on who I am, discovered what I've been about, and created the life that I have now. But none of that could have happened if I didn't face the facts that, yes, my childhood caused me deep emotional pain. I hid it from myself for so many years. I hid it from the world even longer. It is only now that I fully start to share the stories of what I went through, how I survived, and what it's come to be. But in that, in going through life with unmet emotional needs, rejection, neglect, bullying, unrealistic expectations of people, and abuse, and not being able to live up to the unrealistic expectations of others, patterns were formed, behaviours were formed, and that come down with feelings of not feeling good enough, a fear of abandonment, always seeking approval or people pleasing, struggling with self-worth, believing that I had to be perfect, that everything had to line up exactly the way it was meant to, suppressing my own emotions, not being demanding, not even acknowledging my own feelings, and setting aside my own needs in order to create friendships and bonds with people who ultimately still didn't value me. Because underneath, they weren't really seeing the real person that I was, because I didn't know who it was. I had no idea how to show up as that person. It took a long time, but through self-discovery, I know exactly who I am now, and I've healed all those wounds. And that has shaped me into who I am today. And that is someone that I love, I admire, I show up for myself. Am I perfect? Hell no. I still self-sabotage occasionally, but I hold myself accountable to it. I acknowledge my faults. I do the best I can to be who I want to be each and every day. I acknowledge my triggers. I work on them. I see the role that I play in the relationships between me, my friends, my family, and the people that I interact with every day. I choose the way I behave. I choose the actions that I take. And I be the best version of me that I know how to be. I no longer have a fear of intimacy, of people pleasing or trusting, and I don't push people away anymore. I do, however, have very strong boundaries. If you cross them, I will draw that line in the sand and tell you where you can stay behind that line. And I will only walk away from that as a final straw, as the last line of defense of when you will no longer honor the boundaries that I put in place. I'm not a people pleaser. If you hurt me, if you decide that I'm the bane of your existence or the problem in whatever relationship that we have, I will remove the problem. If I'm the problem, I will disappear. And that's not through running away or stopping and not being who I am. That is through simply, I no longer put up with people putting me down, saying nasty things about me, blaming me for their problems. If I cause a problem, I'll own it. I will ask for forgiveness. I will do what I can to grow and evolve through that. Most people, unfortunately, don't. One of the big factors when you start to realize this is what type of relationship styles that you have. I don't have attachment style relationships anymore. I don't need anybody else to tell me how good I am. I have beautiful friendships and amazing sisterhood relationships with some beautiful women in my life who we support, encourage, and uplift each other. And that is the type of coach that I choose to be, the supporting, uplifting, but openly honest, where I will tell you what is going on and help you to become the best version of you that you can for you, not for anybody else. The biggest lesson about all of this that I had to learn is the only person you can want to change for is you. You can't do it for your parents, your children, your partners, anybody else. If it's not for you, it won't stick. You will sabotage it, come up with all the excuses and procrastination in the world. It must become important to you. When you start to realize the problems that are holding you back, you start shifting from feeling like you're never enough, self-sabotage and struggling with boundaries, to having strong personal desires, really powerful boundaries, values for what you demand and expect from other people, and respect for self. You show up and be exactly who you are. And yes, people can take it or leave it. But in knowing who you are, it just means that you no longer wear the mask that you used to put on in order for people to like you. I don't care if anybody else likes me. I care if I like me, because I'm the one that has to look myself in the mirror, and you do too. The only person whose care you need to truly have is your own. Never mind what anybody else thinks about you, because quite frankly, it's none of your business. But you are never going to please everybody. All you can do is the best with what you have, and you do that through self-improvement, self-growth, and self-understanding. And finally, the most important part is self-acceptance. You have to accept who you are, how you show up, how you behave, what you stand for, what your boundaries are, and stand up for yourself, because nobody else is going to do it for you. When you have problems with your unhealed inner child or wounds from past relationships, family problems, or your childhood, one of the big things that will happen is that you will overreact to criticism. But when you finally change and heal that, when somebody has something unpleasant or nasty to say to me, my first thought, if it actually hits me or triggers me in any way, the first rule of thumb for me personally, because of all the work that I've done, is thank you. I have to go and work out, why is that causing me a disruption in my thinking, in my pain in my body, or in my heart center? Because somewhere they've activated a thought that is non-congruent with who I am in today's lifestyle. Because when someone says something nasty about you when you're in your healed, unhealed, and broken self, you actually don't hear it, you just acknowledge it and accept it. Whereas triggers are the non-acceptance of what is without the full belief of what you really are now. It's the in-between stage where you used to believe something that was true, but you no longer do, but you haven't worked out exactly what it is you no longer believe, or what that new belief system is. It helps you to rediscover more about you. When you are still struggling with those emotional wounds, you're going to have big fears of conflict that can sometimes cause you to shut down. It creates anxiety and depression, and it creates symptoms in the body that make you want to run, and massive fear. I remember those stages where I feared conflict so bad that my body would have a panic attack, that loud noises would set me off. But in healing that, I can pretty much cope with anything. Even though, yes, some things will still trigger me because, quite frankly, if it's not triggering me, I'm not growing or changing the way I think. I no longer allow those triggers to overtake me. I just sit with them, thank the person that showed them to me because it's an opportunity for growth, and then heal and work through it. That is the whole point of this. Yes, emotional wounds and triggers and problems from our childhood will exist. It will always be there. The difference that I want to make today is those problems don't have to be in control of life. You get to choose how you've already overcome them because, first and foremost, you have absolutely overcome them. You've survived them already. They don't need to have the power they have over you. And the only reason they do that is because of the perception that you have of what went on. When we get hurt or traumatized or have problems happen to us in our childhood, it creates a bit of disconnect in the soul. And that version of self, that 8-year-old you who got hurt or had something bad done to them, stays in that present moment. It's like a glitch in the system where your 8-year-old self doesn't fully emerge forward because they're stuck in that moment for time until we come and review the perception of what happened through better eyes. So sometimes you may have to go back and look at that 8-year-old you and ask yourself, what happened in this moment? What caused us to get stuck here? And review it again. And then remind yourself that it's okay. Yes, that was bad, but this is who you really are. This is what you've gained from this. This is what you've learned and how you've overcome it. And then you go and love them, apologize and forgive them for being stuck in their fear and allowing themselves to disconnect from all of you and acknowledge the greatness that they have for overcoming that scenario. Because trust me, you've overcome it because otherwise you don't grow and evolve at all. It's through not overcoming something that we actually create death. Sometimes that will be short-lived and people take actions in their own hands, and other times it will be over time through creating disease. Yes, those moments happen, but they don't have to define us. It is up to us how we choose to go back and review the scenario. The problem is when people go back and review the scenario, all they're looking at is what happened to them. I hate to say it because it upsets so many people, but don't care about what happened to you. Care about how you managed to come beyond what happened to you. You are more than the challenge of what was. You are so much more than the little person who didn't have the tools, the knowledge, the wherewithal to stand up for themselves and fight back. You have to go back and review it from who you are now as to how you would have changed or evolved through that situation. It would have taught you something about who you are, about the inner tenacity that you have, the resilience, the ability to grow, to learn, to become the essence of everything that you are. Because each and every moment of goodness or badness in our life has helped us to become who we are today simply by the choice of what we chose to do in those situations. Most of us choose to not repeat what happened to us. And that is the greatest learning of all. Everything that happens to us is there to teach a lesson. And the biggest lesson for most of us is not to repeat that behavior, is to grow through it and to become better, to offer kindness where harshness was given, to offer compassion where there was none, to offer love where you didn't receive it. And that is the part of self that you need to start to review and analyze to see how did your childhood shape you to become who you are today? Because that is the most important factor in all of this. You are you today. It is the only way you could have gotten here. No matter what you've been through, you had to go through that in order to become where you are. It's the only pathway that you could have taken. Yes, we had multiple choices along the way. Yes, there could have been different avenues, but you can't actually get to exactly where you are right now without going through the pathway that you've trodden. It's the truth, right? If you made a different point, a different choice, had a different reaction, you'd be on a whole different timeline, a different trajectory, and you wouldn't be the amazing person that you are right now. So honor those trials and tribulations that you've been through because they have evolved to make you the amazing being that exists right in front of us. In our childhood wounds, when we do not heal them, they can also show up in work and success blocks for us because they create fear of failure, perfectionism, imposter syndrome, feeling undeserving of success. They create limiting beliefs that sometimes we struggle to get over. But the power does lie within you to heal of these. When we don't realize that we have parenting and family dynamic situations, we repeat the same patterns that our parents had with us in our parenting of our own children, in the same patterns with our partners. I'm sure a lot of you women out there have heard that women attract their father. Did you have a great relationship with your dad, or did you have a bad relationship with your dad? And look at your partner to see how that, in the way that they are in comparison to that father figure in your life. That is usually what you're seeking. And I wish that many of you have beautiful, loving, amazing fathers, because those are the relationships that you will seek. But if you didn't, consider what lessons weren't you able to learn with your dad that you are now creating with your partner? Or what lessons didn't you learn from your childhood, from your parents, that you and your partner are now creating for your own children? Is this a cycle that you want to continue, or is it a cycle that you want to break? It is absolutely available to everybody to heal from trauma, from problems in our childhood, and to change the outcome of where you are today. First step along the journey is acceptance and acknowledgement. You have to just accept and honor that is part of who you are. It is part of what made you the magical, amazing being that you are today. And that's the important factor. This is why we go and do inner child connection and healing with those past aspects of self to show them the greatness, show them how big they are now, how much they've grown up, all the great things they got from those lessons and life past hurts and all the trouble that they went through. They become stuck and lost, and it's up to us to go back and recover them. So many people will tell you that it's really hard, but in my opinion, it is really quite simple. When you have a trigger, when you have a problem that arises, sit down with a journal, a piece of paper, any medium for you to analyze and reflect on what went on. Bring up the history of it in your mind. Go and visualize what happened. Who were the players? Who were the parties involved? What was said? What was done? What was said to you or said by you? A lot of this, many people get stuck in thinking that the trauma only happens because things were said or done to you. It's not the truth. The real truth behind it all is you can get just as hurt what was said and done by you. So much regret that people hold on to is being the bully rather than being bullied. Being the wrong person, not giving enough, not showing up as enough, that they turn around and become, quite frankly, doormats. And it's not the way that we really want to evolve forward from these scenarios. If you look at children today, and many adults pass it off, they're just kids, they don't know what they're doing, and children can be extremely hurtful and extremely spiteful. But it ultimately comes down to being learned behavior or acknowledge behavior that some parents do something about, but many others actually don't. So when you're looking back and reviewing your inner child, what was your parents' role in the way that you behaved? Did they do anything to correct it, alter it, change it, or did they encourage it? Because in this day and age, there's a lot of parents out there who let their kids be, quite frankly, little shits, who are nasty and horrible, and they don't do anything to stop it. And quite frankly, they encourage it because kids learn by what they see and hear. So they're just mimicking behavior. And they don't know any better until someone stands up and creates a boundary for them or teaches them a lesson to move forward. Is this something that you had in life? Because if you had a parent who didn't lay down boundaries and didn't stop you from bad behavior, let me tell you, as a parent, you're going to be doing the same to your children. And therefore, they're not going to have respect or boundaries for you. So delve deep beneath the surface when you're looking at the problems that you may or may not have with your children or other people around you, and see what roles were played at the time. Even in the present, what role is being portrayed in this moment? I know many friends and family members who are parents, and one of the most admiring ones I have in my life is my sister-in-law, because when one of my nephews bullied a child at school, she didn't stand by and not do anything about it. She brought him up and made him go and apologize to that child in front of that child's mother, and taught the kid respect and told him that bullying was not tolerated in their household. And it changed the behavior of the boys, that they all knew that bullying was not allowed. And today I'm so grateful that they are some of the most amazing men. They have grown up into beautiful young men who have respect and are really confident, amazing, and capable of doing everything they desire because they got taught powerful boundaries of how to treat each other. They also have very strong sibling relationships where they love, support, and care for them because that was what they was nurtured in their household. My brother learnt lots of big lessons from our childhood, and he has changed so much that he fostered better relationships between his kids than he and I had. And to see that growth from someone who's not fully on the spiritual journey the same way I am, or even has the same perspective of life that I do, as an outsider, I can see how his parenting was altered based on our childhood. And I love the fact that without fully consciously being aware or knowing it from the perspective that I have it, that he did make those changes, and he and his wife created a family that is beautiful. And my nephew has two young sons, and they are fostering the same loving, caring relationship between them. That is what we hope for our children. But that is how we see what we've been through and make changes within self. As someone who had a sister that he didn't like whatsoever, he could have fostered relationships between his kids not to like each other. Because that's what learned behavior does. You repeat the same behavior that you've been taught. But he purposefully fostered loving connection relationships and helped stifle squibbles and problems so that those four kids all are bonded so tight. We love that. I look at friends and I know other people around me who don't have the same fostering of sibling relationships, who don't have the same fostering of cousins and other family members to build a united front together. But it's up to us how we choose to change and evolve through all of this. Once you recognize the pattern, you have the choice to repeat it, or you have the choice to change it, to grow and become better. What is better? That is the definition that each and every one of us has to decide for ourselves. What type of fostered relationships do we want? And accept that throughout the whole thing, it is a healing process. Some acknowledge it openly and very mindfully, and others just do it by not accepting behavior that they tolerated before. When you want to go back and reparent your inner child, you take a healing journey of, as I said, stopping and finding those incidences that made you so scared, so hurt, so harmed. One of those instances is when I was about 3.5 years old. My brother, in his infinite wisdom, wanted to kick me out of the car. He was driving along about 50, 60 Ks, I'm not sure. I don't remember the exact speed. I was too young to understand. But he opened the car door, undid my seatbelt, and tried to kick me out. Luckily, I was able to hold on. I don't know how, but I managed to get back in the car and close the door while my mother screamed and yelled at me to shut the door. Not stop the car, not slow down, not do anything, but just get back in the fucking car was what I was told. And I managed to get back in the car. For most of my life, up until I was an adult, he and my mother would joke about, do you remember the day I tried to kill you when I tried to kick you out of the car? Unbeknownst to them, this story created trauma upon trauma upon trauma. Because the more we reiterate a story, the more we tell ourselves exactly what happened, the more it is thrown in our face, the more times people repeat it, the more harm that is done. It wasn't until he grew up and had kids and he was joking and telling the story to my niece and nephew, when my nephew said, so did you get in trouble, Dad? No. Did Dad hit you, Dad? No. Did she stop the car, Dad? No. So if I was to do that to Kayla, what would you do, Dad? Of which my brother, in his father's mind, stopped and thought about it and thought to himself, holy shit, the first thing I would do is pull over, stop the car, get out and belt your ass. And then as they tell me, he looked at my sister-in-law and said, oh my God, she never slowed down. I never got into trouble. How could I do that? And he apologized. It's one of the first apologies I ever got, and it quite nearly broke me. But he finally got taught a lesson from his child of how important it is and how dangerous that scenario was. And he didn't realize the harm or damage that he'd been doing. Because to him, from his childhood perspective, it was a joke. Don't you remember the time I nearly killed you? And it got told every Christmas, every holiday, every catch up with family. I was the family joke. Don't you remember that time I nearly kicked you out of a moving car? I used to have nightmares of hanging out from that seatbelt with my face inches from the road, flying past. And I still to this day don't fully understand how I managed to climb back into the car. I believe angels helped me push me back inside, and I'm grateful for that. But that childhood trauma, I had to go and find that 3.5-year-old and sit with her. This healing took months and months and months because 3.5-year-old Sharon was so afraid, so broken that there was a problem with her. Because not only did her brother try and kill her in his own words and cause her grave harm, but it became a joke. It became something that nobody worried about. And on top of that, there were no consequences whatsoever. So in healing her, I had to go and nurture my 3.5-year-old self. And in doing that, I create a surrogate. So I have a teddy bear that I call 3.5 or whatever age Sharon. And I sit with her and I talk to her and I hug her. And I had to tell her how brave she was, how amazing she was to survive that. That despite all of that, we still grew up. That yes, our mum and our brother didn't love us the way we wanted to. But we had our godmother, our cousins, and other people around us who did. We had our grandpa at that stage who adored us. There were many people around, but that 3.5-year-old broken self still couldn't comprehend what was so wrong with her that somebody wanted to cause her great harm, but nobody really cared about it. Because as I said, in my family, this became a joke for over 20 years. I was tortured with it. So be very mindful of how you can be impacted by stories that we make fun of. To the person it it's happening to, and the perception of being on the receiving end of something like that, you never realize the true damage of what's going on. I do wonder some days how I ever grew up, because that was only one incident in my life. Yes, it had a massive impact, and yes, I tell you, it took a couple of years of inner healing to resolve that single factor, let alone all the rest. So be very mindful that you may have to go back and reparent that little girl. I had to show her how worthy she was, how loved she was, how important she was. I had to help her understand that her life had meaning. It's through not thinking that she was worthy and being told in many different ways that she didn't deserve to live or be alive or wasn't wanted, that through my 20s, I created lung conditions. And the metaphysical reason for lung conditions is the belief that you don't deserve to live. It took me over 20 years to overcome them, 25 to be exact. 25 years of understanding of that, yes, I deserve to live. Yes, I have purpose. Yes, I have a reason for being here. Especially when my mother would occasionally throw at me, I should have got rid of you at birth or had an abortion and you wouldn't be here. So those deep psychological and emotional wounds do fester. They do matter, but you do have the ability to go back and be the parent that you needed for your inner child. Today, when I go back and look at that 3.5-year-old girl, we play, we color, we do great things. She knows how important our life is, how much work we've put into ourselves, and exactly why we show up every single day to help other people. Because we never, ever, ever want anyone to feel the way we did. So rejected, so abandoned, so nothing. There was a lot of time where I didn't even realize the nothingness of what I felt. I went through most of my 20s being invisible. That was the impact that it had on me. I was a non-entity until you wanted something. And then I was so wanting to be seen and heard that I would do anything that you wanted very quickly. I was great at my jobs. I was great at being a friend, being available. I would show up to do anything just to be seen and heard. It never really gave me what I desired, but it was the way that I had to show up to do that. So remember and realize these things do have massive impact on you. They do change the way you perceive the world around you. But they don't have to stay that way. You can heal from it. You can change it. I have the most amazing relationship with myself nowadays. Is everything perfect? No, it's not, because I still have work to do. But I do that each time it comes up. I allow myself to grow and evolve through every moment. As I said, when I get triggered, I thank the person for triggering me, because it's a layer of self that I wasn't able to see. Because everything will only come up when you're ready to deal with it. Give yourself permission to feel those emotions, sit with them, enable them to be enmeshed in your body. Feel them, because it's only through feeling them that you can really find the peace within. I had to feel that pain. I had to feel that fear. I had to feel those nightmares. And I had to find myself. Most of all, I had to forgive those experiences. I have been able to forgive them, and I have a pretty good relationship with my brother. No, it will never be perfect. Our lives are different. But we can have great conversation and be together when we need to be and show up how we have to. And I know if I ever needed him, he's only a phone call away and he will do anything that I ask. And that is the blessing in disguise of how we build ourselves after these events to repair the relationships. Unfortunately, I don't have that relationship with my mother. For one, my mother never took responsibility for anything that she did to me. That is the vast difference between her and my brother. After he acknowledged that he caused a problem, he apologized for it. And to see him do that, as I said, nearly broke me, but it was the most beautiful thing. And another episode happened when he turned 40, of another time where he apologized for something he was unaware of. And that is the meter of the man. And to me, yes, I don't have a perfect relationship with him, But my brother is a great man because when he's seen that he did something wrong, he showed up for himself and apologized. And I've done the same. I wasn't perfect to him either, and I know I caused problems. I didn't understand what they were, and I don't think he'll fully understand the depth of the knowledge that I have today. But that's okay. We have what we have because it works for us, and that's the most important factor. For my mother, she feels it's in her entitlement to still speak to me like I'm 2 and 3 and say the things she said to me back then. But with my boundaries, I no longer listen to it. I will not allow it, and therefore I have cut off contact with her. Quite frankly, life is survival of the fittest. It came down to when I was 30, the first time I cut her off, of when one of us was going to die. And when I decided that the only way I could fully live and find myself and heal from all of this was to walk away from that relationship, was the greatest gift in my life to be able to do that. It also forged a stronger bond with my brother. And I don't think we would have healed together if I was still in contact with her. But simply for my own self, I couldn't continue to let someone speak to me, blame me, shame me, and accuse me of all of these things that I had no control over and no substance in. As far as my mother's concerned, everything that happened in her life is my fault. The last conversation I had with her late last year, which was quite a healing and cathartic thing to realize that she has no hold over me anymore and I've done all my forgiveness work and healing, is she tried to blame me for her childhood problems that happened when she was 7. I wasn't even thought of or born. I don't know how they can be my fault, but I don't understand her because I didn't understand and fix her problems back then when I wasn't even here. But that's her journey to heal, and I take no responsibility in that. I forgive her for all the harm that she's done because I realize her soul had a role to play. I wanted to learn valuable lessons, and let me tell you, I've learned them very deeply, very awarely, and because of that, I am the person that I am today. So I can honor her and love her for that experience. I just don't tolerate her behavior. And that is the choice that I've made in my boundaries. If your behavior towards me is abhorrent to me, I do not stick around for it. If your behavior towards me is beautiful, compassionate, caring, loving, and uplifting, I'm there for it every day of the week. But I will not be spoken down to, blamed for, or being the excuse for other people's failures or inability to grow within themselves. I know what I'm capable of and I know what I can do for myself. Forgiving my past was for me. It set me free because that anger, that burden already had cost me so much. The reason we talk about this is you don't want to hold on to those emotions because they turn into disease. And they do show up in many, many ways that you may or may not be aware of. The biggest disease is mentally. It affects every relationship that we have, every interaction with other people. If you are having problems in communicating with others, in how you show up, in being taken advantage of, becoming a people pleaser, of feeling imposter syndrome, of not being good enough for anybody, of not knowing who you are, of being unaware of the greatness that lies within, consider, does your childhood have an impact? Are there emotional wounds there that you haven't uncovered? And go back and review. Do what you need to do. You can do this, and the healing doesn't have to be that hard. Because all you have to do is come to acceptance that it happened, understand the lesson that you learned from it, and embody those lessons for self. You can do that through journaling, through EFT, or emotion code clearing, Reiki, kinesiology, or some coaching. Timeline therapy was one of the greatest gifts that I learned last year. And it was so powerful an experience to uncover stories from my childhood. And I thought I had a lot of stories that I was aware of, but there were so many that I haven't been aware of. And through timeline therapy, I was able to discover what they were to heal them too. And from that, I'm freer, I'm lighter, I'm finally losing the excess kilos I've been carrying for a long time because of those emotional burdens. That is how they show up in aches and pains and weight. Emotions carry weight. If you want to go and look at it, there are plenty of books out there that tell you the metaphysical reasons for certain emotions, but 3 things you can take to the bank from personal experience. Okay, weight on your thighs and backside are due to a problematic relationship with your father. If you don't have a great relationship with your dad, if it's not loving, if it's not there, if it's abusive, coercive, or has problems for you, you will find you will gain weight in those areas. If you are having uterine problems with your menstrual cycle, getting fibroids, polycystic ovaries, or there's a word for it and I can't think of it right now, but other problems with your menstrual cycle, it's a direct correlation of your relationship with your mother. Endometriosis was the word that I was looking for. Sorry, it's the one thing that I didn't suffer with. All the rest roll off the tongue because I've had them all. Okay, I created a fibroid from the anger with my mother. It eventually cost me a uterus. So trust me, these emotional wounds show up in your body. Pay attention to the signs. As I previously stated, my being told over and over again that I don't deserve to live created lung conditions within me. They are 3 things that are emotionally contributed to from my upbringing that I had to heal. And I am so blessed to say right now that my lungs are in the best shape they've ever been. I'm finally shedding the excess kilos. And yes, I lost my uterus, but thankfully, touch wood, pray to God, I'm not going through menopause when I'm supposed to have been in it for the past 15 years because I simply said I wouldn't do it. And I wouldn't do it because I have healed the emotional correlation to the problems that arise from that. So if you are one of those women going through menopause, go and consider the relationship that you currently have with your parent and how that's showing up with you. Because it may be something that you need to uncover, and through clearing the emotions associated with it, you may well relieve some symptoms and get back to normal. All of this is about embracing your own self-belief and doing the healing. It starts with setting boundaries, creating values, and having clear definition of what you will accept and won't accept from other people, of how you will respond to things rather than react. It's up to you to recognize if you're overgiving, people pleasing, or seeking validation. You can change that. There's simple, really basic ways to change that through affirmations and reinforcing your self-worth. A lack of boundaries is simply the fact that you will do anything to receive praise, acceptance, or acknowledgement from another party. But it's not usually the acknowledgement you really want. Why don't you start giving that to self and see where your boundaries stand after that? You also have to start embracing self-love and healing yourself emotionally. Practice self-care as an act of self-love. For 3.5 years, I had to do mirror work saying, I love you, Sharon, in the mirror. It nearly broke me because I'd look at it and go, no, freaking don't. I walk past every mirrored surface for 3.5 years going, I love you, and pull faces, and heaven help the poor people on the other side of the window. But eventually one day I looked in the mirror and I said, I love you, Sharon. And that inner voice wasn't there. I had to stop and think, what? And then I had to check in my body, and I had this overwhelming feeling surround me, these tingles head to toe. I can still feel it as I talk to you right now, of acceptance of that love. If you're stubborn like me, it takes a long, long time. For most people, it doesn't take that much time. But back then, I didn't know about EFT and other tools that can help you acknowledge it and receive it faster. But mirror work does work. It took a lot of effort to do that. And it's even so much easier when I look in the mirror and say, I love you, Shaz, because I acknowledge my name, Shaz, so much more. I personally have problems with the name Sharon, simply because of the tone my mother used to use of it. Nowadays, I don't even hear it. I don't acknowledge the name. I do prefer Shaz. I just feel more aligned with it, more accepting of who it, and it's exactly who I've become. Because when I look back at when I was Sharon, I used to hate myself. I hated myself so hard from the upbringing. And yeah, you may sit there and go, but that's disconnecting from it and disassociating from it and blah, blah, blah. I've heard the stories. It's actually not. I just accept myself so much more as Shaz. I love who I've become as Shaz. It drives me to be her. Yes, I will hear Sharon and I'll accept it. I just don't like it as much. And part of liking and loving yourself is loving the name that you have. I know so many people. I lived with a girl and her name was Jane and her middle name's Sarah. She calls herself Sarah. If you don't like your name and you're trying to tell yourself that you love yourself and heal and accept everything, change it to something better. We're not attached to it. The greatest part about reducing my name to Shaz is my full name is Shara Marie Sini, which vibrates at an 8. Marie is my mother's name, so I have total non-acceptance of it. I actually like the name Marie. I got a stepsister, we have the same name. Unfortunately, she's in spirit. I have another cousin, we have the same name. But I'm lucky because I can cheat and say that I'm named after my favourite aunt because I also have an Auntie Marie. I don't have total disconnection of the name. But when I reduce my name to Shazini, vibrationally, it's still the same 8. And I just feel so much more powerful with that shortened version. I feel so much more connected to it, aligned with it. And I love who I look at in the mirror when I do it. And that's the important factor. These are lessons that you'll learn through this. Finding alignment with self for who you are, where you're at, and why you're there. So embrace that self-love and self-care. And if self-care means you have to alter, shorten, change, or lengthen your name, then do it. Do what feels right for you, not what anybody else tells you. Part of that self-care is also allowing yourself to rest, to play, to exercise, and freely feel your emotions. They say you only actually have to sit with an emotion for about 2 or 3 minutes for it to fully pass through the body. It is one of the core factors that I love to do when I'm helping people release energetically emotions from their body, is when you ask yourself, what is the emotion or whatever is going on, and you can identify the name of that emotion. Ask your body, where do you feel it? Is it in a chakra center? Is it in your heart center? Is it a point in your elbow? Where does the feeling of that emotion sit with you? And trust me, your body and unconscious mind will give you an answer. Let's do this little visualization process together. Ask yourself, what's an emotion that you no longer want that's holding you back right now? Identify it in your body. Feel it. Feel that emotion in your body. I'm going to show you feeling mine in my heart center. I'm going to call this self-doubt today. But whatever emotion it is that you feel, I want you to feel it and locate it in your body. And as you locate it in your body, I want you to turn it into a beautiful silver bubble of light. Just a simple visualization within your body, inside of the center of your body, a beautiful silver light, a bubble and ball of light. And we're going to spin that ball round and round and round and round. And as it spins, it's going to gather all those feelings, all those arms, all those tentacles, all those strands, all those ribbons, all those memories, all those past hurts together. And much like a ball of yarn, as you spin and roll it around, it's going to get bigger and bigger as those portions, those memories, those pains, those traumas gather together. And spin it faster and faster and faster, and feel this pain dissipate, feel the energy grow, feel all the strands come out, all the memories, all the occasions, all the instances, all the lessons gather into this beautiful silver bubble of light. And as it spins and spins and spins, when it finally gets big enough that there are no more strands coming out of it, I want you to rise the energy, rise it up past the throat, past the third eye, up through the top of the head, and out of the head it's going to pop. And I want you to visualize a pink, beautiful bubble of light around it and float that off to the heavens. Let it float out there. Now just gently cut the cords above your crown chakra, all over your head, and disconnect from that old energy, and it's gone. That is one of the simple ways that you can change that energy. And from that, you can just start tapping away. Even though I felt self-doubt, I deeply and completely love and accept myself anyway. even though self-doubt has plagued me for a long time. And where I say self-doubt, insert whatever emotion that you feel. I deeply and completely love and accept myself anyway. Even though I've carried this hurt for too many years, I deeply and completely love and accept myself anyway. Yes, self-doubt hurts. I carried burdens for a long time. It is okay to let them go. I am safe and secure. Just breathe. It really is okay. Self-doubt has no place here. You are safe and sound. And I'm just tapping through the different meridians. Top of the eye. I really do love myself. Side of the eye. I can breathe so easy. Under the eye. I finally let it go. Under the nose. I love who I am today. Under the chin, I accept all of me. Collarbones, I feel so good inside. Under the arm. Yes, that is who I am. Top of the head. I value and love who I am. These simple tapping techniques can help you install new emotions, new feelings. So whatever you've taken out, replace them. Instill your new thoughts and affirmations. Remind yourself how strong you are, how capable, how confident, how courageous. Recognize all your skills. Recognize and acknowledge the greatness that lies within you. You have the power to do this. You can do it with your inner child. You can do it with your inner self. You have the capacity to work through this in any way that you can. Healing is an inside journey. The only one that can really do it is you. Yes, you can get assistance and guidance and have someone show you the way, but you have to do it for self. You have to want to do it for you. You are the only one that can. Nobody else can do it for you. It is up to you. And the healing journey is not just a destination. It's a pathway that you walk. It's acknowledgement of self, growth of the inner knowing of who you are, where you stand, why you do what you do, how you show up, get up and be every day, and the responses that you give to others in the way that they interact with you. Those are the choices that you have moving forward. So it's up to you what you choose to do from this space out. But your inner child loves you. Yes, they may be scared and afraid, but they've come with you on this journey. It's time for you to teach them how far they've come. And acknowledge that everything that you've been through has brought you to where you are today, and exactly where you are today is perfect in every way. You could only get here through that journey. Yes, it's not a final destination. It's a step on the pathway. Focus forward on what you want and move towards creating and manifesting the life that you desire. If you are really struggling and you're not sure what to do, please reach out. I'm launching my Shine with Shaz program shortly again. I run this group coaching program every 3 months, and I teach you and walk you through all the tools, all the techniques, all the ways that you can heal from these emotional problems, how you can take back your control, how you can stand in your power to manifest and create the life that you really desire. You are so worth it. You are worthy of everything that you want, and you deserve the effort, but it is up to you. It takes concerted effort. It takes unburdening your soul and letting go of what has been brought with you for so long. And yes, you are ready now. You are more ready now than ever. You can do it. Reach out. Let's have a chat. Until next time. Thanks for listening to the Spiritual Awakening with Shaz podcast. Don't forget to like and subscribe down below so you don't miss an episode. You can also follow us on Facebook with the links below. Until next time, trust your intuition and let your spirit soar.